Sorry, I just got you like reaching out like ET. Oh no.
It just looks kind of cool because like the light is right here. Oh yeah, my
That looks
hand looks sick.
awesome. Oh, that's like
Wow.
Raina.
Yeah, you're right. It is. Probably looks cooler with my tattoo hand. Wait, this looks so cool. Is this my
I love
intro?
that. This actually might be the intro. I might leave this bit in. Okay, here we go. Hello and welcome to Streamer Consciousness, a podcast designed to talk about a person's thoughts and conscious reactions to events perceived as a continuous flow. My name is Gideon. I go by Gidderwood, not only on Twitch, but also on various other places like YouTube and other stuff like that. And Streamer Consciousness is also obviously available on Spotify, where you might be listening now. And we are joined today by our wonderful guest. I'm so happy that she's been able to come on. She has a combined 50,000 followers across her platforms and over 4 million views on Twitch alone as well. Not only a wonderful Twitch ambassador, which we will get into later, but a wonderful person as well. Bloody.
Hi. Hello. Hi. Thank you
Thank
for
you
the
for
intro.
being
That
here.
was so flattering. That was great. Hi.
Oh, thank you. It's a pleasure to have you on. This is one of those late night recordings for people that are wondering. So,
Mhm.
hopefully, I'll be in my wheelhouse, being able to talk to somebody at a time that I'm usually awake.
Heck,
So
that's
that's really
awesome.
good. And you have been streaming for X amount of hours. Let's throw that out there as well. So,
It's been a day.
it's been
It's
a
been a
long
full
day.
day. I'm going to bed after this, but it'll be a good time.
But yes, if you wanted to give us a little intro on who you are and where people can find you on social media as well, that would be great.
Yeah, you can find me at twitch.tv/bloody or twitter.com/bloody. Both of those are where I'm at mainly. And as far as who I am a streamer, mainly Magic the Gathering, or I guess Magic the Gathering, Among Us, and I've been playing a little bit of Valorant lately, but it's pretty much strategy games for the most part that I really love. I'm also a Magic the Gathering competitor and commentator, so that's pretty much my wheelhouse. I mean, I just love games that make you think.
Absolutely. And a lot of thinking goes into what you do as well,
Yeah.
I think, as well. In terms of, I guess, where we'd start, what was it that got you interested in Magic? Like, where were you before you started playing Magic the Gathering?
Oh God. So Magic. All right. Now that the intro's done, we'll tone it down. We'll have our chill late night chats
Sure,
now.
yes. Yeah.
All right. So prior to Magic the Gathering, I was actually streaming. I was streaming a game called Artifact, which is, Valve's attempt at the next biggest card game, like the Hearthstone killer, they called it. They were wrong. Uh, it did not. The only thing it killed was itself, unfortunately. Um, yeah. So I played Artifact. That was the first thing that I started streaming actually for the first few months. And then as it was dying down, and by dying down I mean like dying, I was looking for another game to play. I was thinking maybe I would stream Hearthstone, maybe I would try, I don't know, Gwent or something like that. And then a bunch of people were recommending Magic the Gathering, and I was like, what is this? I've played a bunch of card games all my life, and somehow I had never played Magic. I played Yu-Gi-Oh! I played Pokemon. I played poker full time for almost a year
Oh, wow.
earlier in my life, and never played Magic. I sat down. It was February 20th, 2019, so a little over 2 years ago. And my first day playing Magic, I absolutely loved it. And then I just took off from there, and it was really fun. And I got really, really good really fast, and that was really, really fun as well.
Yeah, for sure. In terms of the learning curve, I guess, on a game like that, especially, there's a lot of information that you need to pick up in a short period
Yeah.
of time. But yeah, you managed to find a way of doing that. In
Yeah, it
terms
was
of,
great.
I was
Oh,
going to
sorry.
ask in terms of, because you brought up about poker as well, and it's really
Hmm.
interesting because the last guest we had on was Jorbs, and he talked about playing professional online poker for years as well. Was it just purely like online poker that you did, or?
It was actually primarily in person. It was exactly
Awesome.
when I turned 21. I just like stopped what I was doing for a while and did poker full time, and it was great. I had played poker. I started learning how to play poker when I was 17 or 18 in college, and it was just a bunch of college kids who were like, they played a few times a week, and it was just a bunch of degens, and we all kind of got better together, and it was really fun. And actually, I think half of the people from that group went on to become professional poker players, and then one of them went on to become a lawyer, which is pretty much the same skill set. So that was, yeah, that was definitely like it plays into Magic a lot because a lot of the way that I play Magic is from the perspective of my opponents, and I think that's a lot of the way that I play poker as well. Is like you have to really get in their head and figure out what it is that they're thinking before you figure out what it is that you're doing.
I don't know much about Magic, I'm honest, if I'm honest. If you had to give me like a short description of the game itself, beyond it being a deck builder, how would you best describe it?
Sure. So Magic is a card game. On principle, you have 20 life and your opponent has 20 life, and your cards are engineered around dealing, eventually dealing enough damage to kill your opponent. And so you have creatures, which are little dudes that get committed to the board that attack your opponents, and then you have spells, which maybe interact with the creatures, maybe they draw you cards, they do something, maybe they discard cards from your opponent, and then you have a hand of stuff, and then you draw cards every turn, and then you just play those cards. So that's just the basic card game portion of it. The thing about Magic that's pretty unique to most card games is that you can play cards outside of your own turn. A lot of games you play on your turn, they play on their turn, that's it. But in Magic, there's a whole slew of cards that can be played at instant speed, which is what it's called, which essentially allows you to interact with your opponents. And so the concept is, it's pretty straightforward, but it's a little convoluted, but it's just called priority. So really, you could play whenever you have priority. So say if it's on someone's go, someone's turn, and they play something, and you have something that you can play, you can play it kind of on top of their card. So like say they play a creature and you have a counter spell, like it's, you could play it in response to them playing their creature, and then it cancels it out. So it's a whole new, I really, really like it because it's just extremely interactive. And so, a game of Magic isn't just like, I do my turn, you go. They do their turn, I go. And then thinking about that, it's like you really gotta, you're really kind of like dancing around with your opponent on like when you're doing what you're doing, and just kind of sliding back and forth of like whose role it is to sort of lead the dance of kind of playing the game. I don't know. It's extremely fun, and there's a lot of different decks. Like there's aggressive decks that just focus on killing your opponent, or there's really defensive decks that all you do is you just sit there and draw cards, and your whole deck is based around counterspelling or just like not letting them do anything or clearing their board and stuff like that. So it's a very dynamic and interactive game that has a bunch of different angles that you can approach depending on the kind of player you are or what you want to do.
You talked there, well, firstly, I can tell that you're a caster as well, purely from the way you described that. What was it that got you interested in casting and tournaments in general?
So let's see. So for tournaments, I'll start with tournaments because commentary I'll start with commentary because long before I was a streamer, I volunteered. The way that I got into games in general, like working in games, because before I was a streamer, I was a full-time tournament organizer or event coordinator. And how I got into that was basically I was playing a little bit of competitive Hearthstone, and I saw that they had like spots open for volunteer shoutcasters for this like little online tournament that had, like 10, 20 viewers every time they ran. And I was like, wow, that seems really fun. So I started commentary there. And I think I always really enjoyed it from then. So putting that on the back burner, because then obviously I went on to coordinate events and organize tournaments, et cetera, et cetera. Fast forward to now I'm a streamer and I really love this game. And I'm competing in it because I freaking enjoy it so much and I'm good at it too. So within my first year of competing in Magic, obviously COVID slowed things down after the next year. But within my first year of playing tournaments online and going in person to play at events, I got third place at my first, it was like an invitational for streamers, but it was still like I got third place and second place back to back. Like in my fourth month of playing. And then I won a whole tournament. And it wasn't even like an invite tournament or anything. It was like I just showed up there, paid $30 to sit down and played with everybody and like a couple hundred people, and I just won. I went undefeated in the whole tournament within my first year of playing. And it was paper Magic too. It was like the actual Magic cards, and I wasn't used to it at all. Like I was messing up all the time. But I won, and it was really great, and it makes me very happy. And then that qualified me for like the Pro Tour, which is kind of like the step right below Worlds. It's kind of, like the thing that happens like a few times in the year that qualifies you for Worlds. And so I played in the Pro Tour, and I actually made it to day 2 of my very first Pro Tour, which is like crazy difficult. I went 6-2 on the first day. And when you play in the Pro Tour, you play with like the literal best players in the world. So I have a very, very I have a nice resume that I'm very proud of for like, especially my first year of playing. I think I really kicked it off. So I think once I kind of dove into my passion in Magic and kind of explored how good I was at Magic, there was a very interesting dynamic that, of course I'm used to presenting things in a way that's very consumable for viewers as a streamer, but I was also really good at this game. And so Wizards of the Coast actually hit me up and they sought me out as an analyst, which is uncommon because usually they put the streamers in play-by-play role. Just for a little breakdown, analysts are the ones who break down all the nitty-gritty of the game, and then play-by-plays are the ones who like kind of translate that and give it to the viewer. They're like they're like the viewer's best friend. They're like the
color
guy.
Commentary.
Exactly.
Yeah. I'm gonna make this sound really easy to listen to, whereas you're like, these are the stats.
Exactly. And so they asked me to be an analyst, which I think I was either the first or the second woman analyst like ever at like the highest level of commentary, which was really sweet. And it was a really cool combo of like I knew everything that was going on. I knew every single card, I knew every single deck, I knew what everyone was playing, I knew the stats and everything, and I knew why they were doing the moves they were doing. But I kind of was really passionate about it too, and I think it was like very easy for people to digest and like understand. So it seemed like a very natural lead up, and I got pretty lucky. Honestly, I got really lucky because I think the kind of person I am as a streamer just lined up really well with the skills it takes to be a commentator. So just kind of walked right in there, and I was like, wow, this is great.
Is that from growing up? Is that the way you were brought up, do you think, that led to you being like easy to talk to and stuff like that? Or
it's interesting, actually. So I have always been extremely interested in like social relations, or like social relations between humans. Like I was a sociology major, and that was like an interest that stemmed deep from when I was a kid. But when I was a little kid, I was actually extremely antisocial. I'd like to kind of, I guess the origin story is like, the best way to put it is I was really bad at everything when I was a kid. I was really bad at video games. I was really bad at sports. Like I had some kids in my neighborhood that they would always play, and I would play with them and I would lose every single time. I sucked. And I was really bad at like making friends and talking to people. The only thing I was good at was losing. But I think that was like the literal best skill for me to pick up early in my life, which is like learn how to lose properly, because then that's how you grow, and that's, you gain so much by losing. So that was kind of, when I was a kid, I wasn't really good at talking to people, but I was always very interested in people, and I always kind of did a lot of observing. I think I built up a lot of social skills throughout, adolescence and when I was in college as well. And I became like a pretty charismatic talker, but not a particularly empathetic talker, or like empathetic human. I think I spent a lot of my early life like extremely depressed, and so I was just in a little bit of a bubble. And so while I like knew the things to say, I didn't really connect to humans on like a deeper level until I was like, I don't know, 20. So like a good like 4 years ago. But I think at that point in time, like things finally started shifting, and I started becoming a lot happier, and like I started connecting to humans a lot more. And I think that was like the big catalyst in kind of solidifying the skill set that happens to work out as a streamer. Because, I never really thought that I would want to be a streamer, nor did I think that I would be good at it. But I think that was like a really big like paradigm shift in just how my brain functioned. And suddenly I was just like a, good talker. And I was just like, a very social human, and really easy to get along with and really easy to talk to. And so it was kind of like a cocoon like caterpillar cocoon, like butterfly situation of like I just sat there in my cocoon most of my life, just like learning stuff about people, and then eventually I became able to like apply it. And like, of course, now I'm an extremely empathetic person. Like, I love people and I love talking to people and I love helping people, making them happy. And so, it was a really interesting training montage to get to this skill set.
I always find it interesting, especially like listening to Twitch streamers talk about the way they interact with each other and also with other people, because as I said to Jobs last week, like, I'm not just looking at letters and numbers when I see a username. I'm talking to a real human being who's on the other end right there. And I feel as though having a skill set of almost being able to envision that person in front of you as you talk to them, I think is something that is often overlooked when it comes to Twitch streaming. People often just see the usernames as numbers or figures, or at least that seems like that from an outsider's perspective, that they only want the money, or hey, their chat's going so fast they're not paying attention to anything. And I feel as though it's a real skill to include everyone regardless of how fast the chat's going, or make people feel included in something like that. Do you have any tips or tricks that when it comes to that stuff that's helped you, considering you've been on the platform since what, 2018?
Yeah. I think my biggest hint of it, like my biggest tip for streaming in general is like try to be entirely yourself, because if you're not being yourself, you're probably going to tire yourself out eventually. Like one of two things will happen, and a lucky one thing. Well, yeah, one of two things I think will happen eventually. Either one, you're gonna wear down on your mental health if you're kind of putting up too much of a front, or number two, you're slowly just gonna align your stream persona to who you are as a person more. Whether that means that your personality as a human starts inching closer to that, or whether your, stream persona starts inching closer to your personality, is like I think in the longest term, every streamer will end up becoming the person that they are on stream, I think, almost in its entirety. I mean, certainly everyone has a little bit higher energy when they're in stream, or they amp it up just a little bit, but as far as like the human that you are, and the personality that you give off, I think I've just noticed that you pretty much you either become the person you put up there, or that person you put up there becomes you, if they're not already aligned. So my advice is figure out what kind of person you want to be, and figure out how to put yourself out there in the most genuine way possible, because otherwise it could really burn you out too. I think I had to take like a good month and a half off, and post that month and a half off I like made a really big shift from, I kind of, my streams were a lot of myself, but there was a lot more like forced positivity than I tend to approach like actual life with, because I was like, oh, I just want to make streaming like a happy environment and everything. And that's fine. Like keeping things a happy environment is fine. But I kind of pushed it too much to the point where I was like actually degrading my mental health a bit. Where when I came back, I was like, listen, y'all, because it was COVID. And a few months in the COVID, I was like, listen, y'all, I actually can't handle trying to keep things calm anymore. Like the world's on fire, everything's a nightmare, and I got to be able to talk about this. I can't just like keep on smiling when there's like a lot of things to not smile about. So that was the big thing for me, and I needed to take a break too. I needed like a month and a half off to unwind from that, and I think that was kind of the result of a buildup of me having to like constantly put in this energy to be a little less genuine than I normally am. But at the end of the day, I mean, I learned that lesson, and I think the person that I put up on stream is like entirely myself all the time, and it's way less exhausting that way, honestly.
For sure. Let's go back a little bit towards, I know I'm a bit all over the place right now, but
totally.
firstly,
I have like super ADHD, so I'm always all over the place. You're good.
The other thing is like you have so many interesting avenues of things I can talk about with you. So I feel like I ask one question and then like another 7 appear in my head as to what we're talking about. But I think you couldn't have said it better when it comes to being a genuine and authentic person on Twitch. And I feel like that can sometimes be lost in translation. But yeah, especially in terms of understanding that starting out, it shouldn't be about the big numbers. Don't look at what everyone else is doing. Focus on how you can find the people that you want to be around 10 years from now. Like, regardless of how long the stream goes on for, or if people move platforms, that doesn't mean that those people are suddenly going to go away. So if you can find the people that you connect with, that you may connect with for the next, 50 years of your life, you honestly don't know. I think that's very important. And as you said, I really do connect with the idea of people's streaming personas sort of directly shifting into their real life personas, because we've been seeing it more and more recently, especially with just all of the allegations, for lack of a better term, of people dealing with I guess success and fame, and how they've handled it in the past. And I really do think that the quicker you can understand that as somebody that's starting out, the better you're going to not only be for yourself, but the better your future will be too.
Yeah. I mean, I think sustainability is something that's difficult to keep in mind when you're starting out, because there's a lot of a honeymoon phase to streaming, and you really grind it out a lot. I mean, I did it my first year. Like, I streamed like 8 to 10 hours a day, every day, 6 days a week, all the time. Like, I streamed like 200 hours a month. And streaming hours aren't just the work you put into stream. Like, this before stream for like 30 minutes or an hour. And honestly, from the time I wake up, I check my emails, I check my messages, I like set stuff up, I organize things, I get my stream ready, I turn my stream on. When I'm done with stream, I sit here for at least an hour, answering more messages, answering responses, coordinating things. Like, sometimes I'll just sit in a meeting for another few hours afterwards. Like, there's so much that goes on offline as well. So sustainability is extremely important. I mean, if you want to be on that grind, like, go for it. I'm never going to be one to stop the grind, but you have to just make sure that you know what you're doing, and that you... Sorry, my brain clicked off for a second. You have to make sure that you know what you're doing, and you have to make sure that you're going to be able to like maintain your pace, or at least like have a plan for how to approach it. But yeah, no, I mean, you said it very well. I mean, it's really not about the numbers. I think it's about putting your most authentic self out there and doing what it is you're passionate about. And if the numbers come, the numbers come. I mean, not to say that you should disregard them from a perspective of strategy. It's extremely reasonable and recommended that you kind of work smart and work hard, because streaming is extremely hard. And no matter how much you want to succeed, there's just a world where you don't. There's a lot of worlds where things just don't work out, because it's extremely like confirmation bias world of like the people who make it talk about how they made it, and the people who don't, you don't really hear much from them. And so streaming's hard. Content creation is hard. If you want to do it because you love it, because a few years from now, even if you end up popping off and being big, it's really unlikely that happens unless you really love what you're doing.
And here we are at 2:20 in the morning recording a podcast, to hopefully not only entertain people, but to give them that advice on stuff like that.
Yeah. I think never know when you're going to hear advice that changes your life, or that just changes your whole perspective. It's a really cool thing about life in general, is like, you could just be doing whatever. I could be sitting eating ice cream on my couch watching anime, and someone says something and it really just resonates with me, and I'm like, wow, I want to see the world a little differently. Like, you never know. 2 a.m. on a podcast could just change someone's view.
True. I really like what you said there about not being afraid to look at the numbers, I guess. From an analytical point of view, the idea of going back and being able to compare statistics and go, hey, I did this week. Did it affect what I was doing last month? I guess a lot of people just focus on the numbers. They have their view count on. They stare at their view count and they go, hey, I've got 7 people here right now. I better be funny. I better make this funny joke. Oh, now it's down to 6. Oh, what did I do wrong? Okay, now where do I go from here? I've gone down to 5. Okay, I need to be funnier. I need to be this person. And a lot of people then aren't focusing on actually entertaining people, but more trying to entertain themselves with the notion that people should be there watching them, rather than working smart, like you said, in terms of, I think it's loving what you do, focusing on that, and being able to understand that if you've been live for 8 hours in your day, when you're starting out to 3 people, maybe if you'd have spent 1 hour of that 8 hours you were live spending it in another person's stream, or networking, or posting those emails out that maybe you should have posted, you don't know how much more that could be beneficial to you than
content creation is like content creation is a lot about opening as many doors as you can, hoping a hand pops out of one of them and sucks you in. It's like I can't really think of how many times something else, one of those doors I've been working so hard to open, someone just extends a hand. I'm like, okay, I could walk in through here. Great. Like you never know, but you got to open as many doors as you can too. I mean, you need to meaningfully go wide, not just like throw every single attempt everywhere. You need to like be able to attack this from a few different angles, and hope that hope that the efforts that you put in the places that you're putting them into kind of work out for each other.
I do want to point out as well that Bloody is in America, so if there is any like little static hiccups or anything like that, then because some of them I might just leave that one in, for example, because it actually made me laugh a little bit, but I knew what the premise of what you were saying to do with opening doors. I was just going to go back to what we were talking about 20 minutes ago when I said that we were going a bit all over the place from where my brain was at, but you mentioned tournaments, and I would love to know how much work goes into creating a tournament.
Ooh, creating a tournament is interesting. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes of events. You want to know a fun fact?
I would love to.
I was actually one of the people, or I was part of the small team of people, 2 people, who pitched the ideas for Twitch Rivals. And I was a part of the team that ran the first Twitch Rivals before it was called Twitch Rivals, wow. And then the second one when it was called Twitch Rivals. So
what was it called before like, Twitch Rivals? Whoa.
Yeah, that is actually before I was a streamer. Before anything, I was a tournament organizer, and it's really cool to see Twitch Rivals like pop off so much now, because it was like essentially in small part my baby, and it makes me so happy.
What was it called the first time before it was Twitch Rivals?
Well, before it was called Twitch, so Twitch Rivals is a name that was like, it was the name for like just a few tournaments in like 2014 or something. And then in 2017 or 2016, we did something called HS Gold Rush, which is like for Hearthstone. And it was a Twitch ran tournament that, featured everybody competing while they were on stream. And it was really successful, and everyone loved it. And we were like, and after that, because that was kind of like the pitch for it. And then after that, we were like, we can do something with this. And so we went back. I mean, it wasn't my idea to go back because I wasn't the one working for Twitch, but the person who I was working with went back, and they were like, hey, this small series called Twitch Rivals before, it was just for a few tournaments, but like, we actually really like that branding. Why don't we like take this tournament that we ran, smack it together with Twitch Rivals because it's really catchy, and like start running things like in a much larger capacity. And so that turned into like the first Twitch Rivals, which was also a Hearthstone tournament, but we like smacked the Twitch Rivals name onto it. And then from then on, it was like a tournament every month, and then twice a month, and then 3 times a month, and now it's happening like every few nights. And they're big too, because it originally kind of spawned from like, one game and another game. People didn't really know what it was, but they're all like, oh, it's that thing. And then it slowly started blowing up, and now, it has so much momentum, and everyone loves playing in it. Everyone knows what it is. So it's really cool to watch that kind of idea before it happens, see all the work that goes into it, and then just like sit back and play in it now. It's such a weird stance to be in.
Yeah, we've had the fortune of being able to play in the same Twitch Rivals together. Which was hilarious because we were on different teams, and it was like I didn't know you too well at that point, but we'd played a few games of Among Us. So me and Bloody met through Among Us as well. just to give you guys some understanding of I guess the networking side of it. And we've got to know each other a lot more since then, which is awesome. But yeah, we got to play in Fall Guys together, and I remember at one point with Bloody being on the other team, and you messaged in the Discord like "suck it" because we were losing. We were behind your team at that point.
I was trash talking so much. It was great.
It was so much fun to like be able to be like, man, my friends are in this, and like we're having fun together, competing against each other. And I think at that point, that's when I realized like, wow, this is a lot more enjoyable than I guess I'd anticipated, because I always thought, well, this is just going to be anxiety inducing, being in a tournament like that. But yeah, it was a lot of fun.
Tournaments are fun. Tournaments are stimulating. They really feed that primal part of every human that wants to win. But there's so many different stakes and such a variety of involvements that they don't always have to be stressful. Not every tournament is kind of like a world championship kind of thing. You can really you can play in a tournament for fun because tournaments are fun, and I feel like a lot of people don't really realize that until they try it and they're like, wow, this is great.
What's the biggest tournament that you've organized or played in, I guess?
Played in and organized are two different things.
Yeah, because you said about doing the pro tour and that being big.
So I think the biggest tournament that I've organized is I've helped organize like full dream hacks.
Wow.
So like I would be basically running from well, there's like a project manager for each game, and so I would be the head admin for like all of the Hearthstone end, but then running from tournament to tournament to tournament to tournament to tournament to tournament with my hands on all of them and like helping all of them whatever way I needed to, but from like a high end, from like a platform end. Because I used to work for the platform that DreamHack uses for their tournaments, and so I would have my hands on literally all of like I would walk over to like Street Fighter, and then I would walk over to Melee, and then I'd walk over to Hearthstone, and then I'd walk over to Rocket League, and then like so I think DreamHacks are probably the biggest scale of things that I've kind of been involved with running. It's really cool. I don't know. I something that I really loved about running events is I was very, I played a lot of World of Warcraft in my life. It felt very much so like being a raid leader when you run a tournament, because, you have a bunch of people kind of like working with you. You got like your tanks and your healers and stuff like that. And then you have like a boss. The boss is just the event running smoothly, and it never runs smoothly. And so there's always fire in places, and you have to figure out how to tell people not to stand in the fire. Like some of my favorite tournaments, are the ones that go smoothly, but some of my fondest memories of tournaments are the ones that were like completely upside down. Like I remember running a Hearthstone major in PAX South in 2017, and it was actually my first time being an admin for like, a bigger tournament. Was it 2016? Might have been 2016, for like a bigger tournament for like PAX. And it was like everything was so on fire, and I was having so much fun handling it that I ended up from that first time being an admin, or from like being an admin. The next time I was the head admin, because they were like, oh my god, she just killed it. Like, let's bring her in, because it was great, because like it would. Our internet wasn't working. We were at the very back corner of the whole convention center, so no one knew.
I missed a little bit of that, just from where you started. What did I miss from? Sorry.
Wait, so from started listing the thing about PAX?
Yes. Yeah, that must have been it.
Yeah. Okay, so where was I? Yes. The ways PAX South were on fire, that's right. PAX forgot to put us in their directory. So there's a directory of all the tournaments that are there and events that are there. We weren't there. PAX forgot to tweet us out. They said they were going to do it. They didn't. Our tournament was in the very back corner, so far back from everything else that you would walk through all the floor and turn around before thinking to go to us.
Oh no.
And then on top of all that, our internet was terrible. We had like these devices that were set up and everything, and no one could get into the game, and everything was going like as slow as a slug. And so everyone's freaking out. The head admin's like having a panic attack, and I'm just like, all right. So we had to like distribute people, like, I was like very happy to have like taken the reins on this one. I'm very thankful, and of course, like no event is run by just one person. Everyone was being incredible, but I happened to like steer the direction of it quite a bit. Where it was like, all right, you two walk around with this like megaphone and oh no wait no we lost the megaphone. That's right. Walk around with your hands like this and say, Hearthstone tournament, free Hearthstone tournament in the back corner. Please go sign up. Because the thing is in addition to it contributing to the success of the tournament, the event wouldn't have been counted as like a major tournament unless it had 128 people sign up, and we were at like 50, and we were scrambling. And we were behind schedule and everything. It was crazy. And no one could even sign up for the tournament because the computers that had the sign up plan, the internet wasn't working. So I had to get like one admin to be at the little sign up area, which is just them giving instructions on how to sign up on everyone's phones. I had another person have to like two people had to go all around the floor like shouting that there's a Hearthstone tournament in the corner. I had to have someone like go have a meeting with like their social media team and get like tweets put up. And then I had to like go work with tech support to get them to literally like stop throttling the internet because they were actually able to pump more internet to us. The other thing ended up being that it wasn't even that they were skimping on internet, it was that none of the devices had been updated prior. Like Windows hadn't been updated. Oh, no. And so every single device had automatic updates on running in the background, and that's why nothing was working. And that's a solution that we figured out maybe 3 hours into the panic. But it was so interesting because there were so many different like definable actions that you could take to make the situation a little less on fire, but the solutions wouldn't really reveal themselves until you've taken a certain amount of steps. So it was organizing tournaments is such a dynamic puzzle because there's so much you could do to prepare and everything could still go wrong. But every time everything goes wrong, you retain at least one thing that went wrong and it doesn't go wrong in the future. Like from then on, I always made sure Windows was fully updated on every computer the night before, 100%. And every single time I did a big tournament, I learned another lesson to the point where when I got to the end of my tournament organizing career, it was really cool because things wouldn't go wrong. And like once in a while, something would break or something would happen or someone like some stragglers, whatever. But for the most part, by round 2 or 3, I would just sit there and everyone's quietly playing. And it's like being the owner of like the world's nerdiest library. Everyone just sitting there, just staring at their computers. And I'm like, wow. So I was so proud.
That's amazing.
That's the real cool thing about organizing tournaments is just it's a challenge and it's like a big puzzle. But the end result is that a lot of people have a really fun time and someone wins and it's a blast. So it's a puzzle where you help people have a good time with their day.
Help people literally achieve their dreams. Some of them, I'm sure, as well.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I can't tell you, just even on a smaller scale, how much those tournaments had made in my day as an organizer, but also I've played in tournaments. It's so fun. You get to go to an event with your friends and you get to, bring a deck that you're real confident in and you get to battle it out. And whether you lose or win, I mean, it's still a really fun time. Pretty much everyone's going to lose except for the winner. And so you get to be proud of how well you did. Or you get to just go to dinner afterwards and talk about how much fun that was. Or you get to talk about how shitty it was. It's still going to be a fun time.
That's really, really awesome. And I just hope that if I ever run a tournament in the future, I will be messaging you in advance.
1000%.
To make sure that everything runs.
Coordination advice, I'm happy.
That's
happy
it.
to help.
I actually do have an idea of something that we should be doing in the future, which I'm going to have to message you about. Involving charity. I think we could do a lot of stuff there.
Charity tournaments are dope. People get to like. Sorry.
It's okay. I was just segueing into the fact of speaking about charity. You've managed to raise a lot of money for various charities, and I would love to hear you talk about it so that people can understand all of the good that you have continued to do in the world as well.
Yeah, so I've definitely raised money for a variety of charities. Second most notably is St. Jude, St. Jude's Children's Hospital. They're excellent, and they're just like, I'm very close to the people who run it and to their cause, and I think that it's just like they do a really good job of integrating themselves with kind of the streaming world, and kind of getting everyone on board to really like push St. Jude donations, and they have their like they call it like their Play Live month specifically, I think, and that's what it's called. Where like they kind of give out these cool like rewards for like benchmarks and milestones of like certain amount raised in a month, and they kind of give you like kits of like fun things to do to help you out. They really, I think like content creators are like some of the most marketable source of anything anywhere. So like I think that charities figuring out how to work in tandem with content creators to raise money for like a great cause is like really respectable and really smart. And I really enjoy how St. Jude has like streamlined such of the process. And it's really great. So I love helping them out, and I love raising for them. But most notably, the biggest charity stream that I've done for sure was in November. I raised, well, I'm saying I is pretentious, but we as a community and as a whole group of streamers, we collectively raised over $37,000 for Trans Lifeline in 6 hours in one stream.
It's incredible.
It was insane. Oh man, yeah, it was work. Like, those charity streams don't just pop up out of nowhere. I mean, certainly there's a whole range of different things you could do for charity, and if you want to just sit down, start a campaign, and donate some money into it, that's amazing. But if you really want to put together like a big thing, you're probably gonna have to put some elbow grease into it. And I was like stressed every day trying to figure everything out, but like the end result was so worth it. Like me stressing out for 2 weeks, and then the end result is $37,000 raised for charity. Even if it was $500 raised for charity, that still would have been worth it. Like, yeah. So I'm very proud of that. And actually, I'm currently planning another charity stream that will be on Trans Day of Visibility. Oh wait, did I not even, I don't even think I said I raised 30 and then I said it was for Trans Lifeline. Did I say that? Okay, yeah. Well, I'm doing another Trans Lifeline charity stream on the 31st, which, believe me, it was Trans Day of Visibility before it was the new Among Us map day. But of course, now everyone thinks the 31st, and they're like, oh, the new Among Us map day. So I'm not super thrilled about that. Because ideally the day was supposed to be about the charity. And of course, I'm still gonna run a kick-ass, stream, and it's still gonna be a wonderful time. But that definitely adds a few more cogs into the mix. And that's kind of like, that's something that I picked up from event coordinating. It's like, you never know when your event's going to fall on the same day someone else's, well after you planned the day for yours. It's just how it go, In any case, yeah, I'm planning that now. And it's a crazy mess on the end of things, because like I still have to sit down and stream for 8 or 10 or 12 hours a day or whatever. And then I log off, and then I do a ton of work for that. But it's so satisfying and it's so amazing. It's like, you get to genuinely help people on such a large scale just from like the blood, sweat, and tears you pour into your job. Like, I can't think of a better job to have, where I'm able to not only on a day-to-day sit down and kind of make someone's day better, but not just someone, but like a lot of someone's. But I also get to like leverage that and get all my streamer friends in on it too, and help leverage everyone's communities into like raising money for a greater cause. Like, it's genuinely some of the most fulfilling. It's genuinely the most fulfilling thing I've ever done is be able to do this kind of work. So, yeah, it's amazing.
I felt, considering I've been streaming for like 4.5 years, a long time. I always told myself, oh, at some point I'm going to do a charity stream. I'm going to do a charity stream. And every year I talked myself out of it, thinking, oh man, I'm not going to be able to raise enough. What if people don't participate? And, since June of 2020, I've done 3 so far, and they've all, raised a fair amount for the charities that we've been working towards. But it is that understanding of, wow, I can do it. Like, within yourself alone going, hey, like, it's bigger than me. And I feel like that was a huge moment of realization for me when it came to doing charity work. It's not about me in the first place. Like, I'm just the vessel. I'm the host of helping raise this money rather than thinking, not selfishly, but like ignorantly
No,
that, you know.
I will wager to contest that everything you thought is valid and those anxieties are valid. Is that, um, certainly as a content creator, nothing is stopping you from doing 100 charity streams.
True.
But realistically, there's a lot to consider. I mean, it's a big strain on your mental health, and there's a lot of different areas where, it's not every day that someone. First off, streaming is complicated and very emotionally tangled up in a lot of different areas, and nothing can prepare you for being a streamer, and the challenges and the thoughts and feelings that come along with it. It's really difficult sometimes to understand even why you think like poorly of certain things or why certain things stress you out. But as far as charity streams go, it's a lot. I mean, I only do a charity stream like once every like 4 to 6 months. And it's not because I don't want to give money more frequently or like create the means to give money more frequently, but it's because it's a lot of work and it's stressful. And there's only so much of yourself you could put out there on a day-to-day while accumulating just a little bit more for extra projects and then pour all that out into a project. And then, that's a lot of work and it's a lot of energy. And so while it's some of the most satisfying work I've ever done, it's also some of the most emotionally intense and draining work I've ever done. And so I think the whole thing with charity streams is that it's important to know that it is about you because you are the host and you're leveraging your community, and that has a whole string of feels along with it. Because I have trouble asking people to like support me as a human, and like I need support to live and eat and be under a roof. And so it's difficult for me to try to like just blatantly ask everybody for money. I mean, and that's just like a lot of stuff that you have to deal with all the time. And so it's like perfectly reasonable to just not feel ready for that kind of stuff. And like not everyone's going to do charity streams, and that's totally all right. But I do think that like, yeah, I don't know. It's a lot to think about, but it's nothing that you should really like shoulder yourself on. It's like whenever you're ready, you're going to do it, and it's going to be great. If you really want to do it and you feel like you can't, that's also okay. I mean, you'll do it if you can. If you want to, you'll do it if you can, and at that point, you don't have to worry about it otherwise. Like if you really feel like you can't, it's something not to guilt yourself over,
For sure. I think what really struck me about that was watching G did a charity stream where she sat for 12 hours in silence watching videos on sort of the Black Lives Matter stuff that was going on at the time, and just educated herself. And I think for me that was the moment where I was like, if she can sit here in dead silence for 12 hours and people will help towards the cause and support her for that, then what is it that's terrifying me so much?
Oh, for sure.
And that was a real wake-up call moment for me of going, I can do this too. Like I can help in a way that I feel I can. So
no, definitely. I mean, the other thing about charity streams is that they don't always have to be grand spectacles. If you sit down and you raise $50 for charity, that's amazing.
Yeah. I
think something that really gets in the way of people is like, is this going to go well? And I feel like the way charity streams have to work is you have to like basically before you do any of the work to get to the end result, you have to already understand the end result's gonna be awesome because you're putting your energy into raising money for a great cause, and it's gonna go well no matter what. Say you don't reach your goal of $500 or $100, you raise $80, you still just raised $80 for charity. You still just raised, $300 for charity. It's like at the end of the day, no matter what happens, if you're giving it your best shot, it doesn't matter the size of your community or what ends up happening, like you're always going to be able to do something, even if you raise no money, but like a few people watched and thought about the cause that you're raising for, like it was worth it.
Yeah.
In some capacity, it was definitely worth it. And so I think what helps me when putting together my charity streams is kind of, I kind of meet myself at the end of the finish line being like, you're going to get here, just push through it. You're going to get here. And so that's the whole thing for me is like, I'm doing all the work and I'm anxious about the type of work that I have to do, like wrangling people together, making sure like everything is organized and set. But the thing that keeps me pushing through it is I know that at the end of the stream, at the end of the time, I will have raised some amount of money for charity and it will have been worth it and it was beautiful and I did some good. And that's all that actually matters.
You mentioned that you raised money for Trans Lifeline. I'd love to ask, and I have it worded here, how accommodating are Twitch of the LGBTQ plus community? And is there anything they could do to be more accommodating?
I think they're fairly accommodating. I think like, you know, Twitch is a very large platform. I think the teams that are in charge with helping marginalized groups are doing their best for sure. I think they've got some really incredible people on those teams, and I think that when a lot of the time when people are criticizing Twitch and the things that they do and them not doing enough, it's usually outside of the power of like those wonderful people on the teams that are like dedicated to help. So saying Twitch as a unit is very difficult for me to like assess. But as far as like the teams that are in charge, like, you know, the teams that are in charge of boosting these people, I think they do a great job. I think, you know, trying to get like a very large spread of marginalized communities kind of front paged and just like front and center of like these people are awesome and these people matter. And Twitch does a good job of letting you hear a lot of different people's voices. I think they recognize that it's not particularly like it's not always their place to say the things, but it's kind of their place to elevate people to say the important messages. And so I think they do a great job. I mean, I was real happy with how with Black History Month there was always someone of color on the front page rotation, and there was literally just like a full section of like here are like featured streamers. There's always a section on the homepage of it, and I think that was really dope. And I think, and for Women's History Month right now, there is always at least one woman from women like for on the carousel rotation, specifically for Women's History Month. So I think they're doing a great job. I mean, obviously there's always more that companies can do to boost people, but
Sure.
I think they get it, and I think that they're constantly improving too. As far as for LGBTQ, I mean, I think they're doing a pretty good job. I'm very excited for Pride Month because I think they've really upped their game, and I think they've kind of leveled up the things that they can do as a team from last year to this coming year. So I'm very, very excited to see how this June plays out for Pride Month. But yeah, TLDR, I think they're doing a good job, and I think that that team continues learning and growing, and in the process, they're helping the communities more and more.
And speaking of helping the communities, I know that obviously you've been through a transitional period on Twitch, and I think it would be good for people to be able to hear about it if you feel comfortable sharing, because obviously there's a lot of people out there that that don't know, I guess, how to approach the topics, let alone how to treat people even when it comes to that stuff. So I'd love to hear you talk about it and give you this platform to discuss.
Wait, are we talking about trans stuff or? Oh, okay, cool. I didn't. Yeah. Sorry, I was like, yeah, probably. Yeah, no, definitely. I'm trans. If people didn't know, I
don't think a lot of people would. I'm just saying. You said if people didn't know, and I think I'm just in terms of like people in general, I don't think a lot of people would know that information.
Well, I definitely have like a really big privilege as a trans woman that I get to go through my life on a day-to-day, and unless I say the words I'm trans, people don't really know that I'm trans.
Yeah.
And it's certainly a privilege that not a lot of people have. You know, I was definitely and I'm happy to have been able to get from where I was to where I want to be, and I'm lucky that it happens to fit societal norms. I mean, I think like everyone is beautiful, and societal, society's bullshit, and our idea of like what beauty is and what people are supposed to look like is all bullshit. And the fact that, you know, my face happens to look a certain way or my body happens to look a certain way that, you know, keeps me out of trouble, basically, like keeps me from getting like super scrutinized is ridiculous. It's terrible. But like, it would also be pretty ridiculous of me to not acknowledge that as well, of like, you know, I'm super lucky. But yeah, I'm trans, and being trans on the platform is very interesting. It's really, I mean, it's the whole reason I started streaming. The whole reason I started streaming from day one was that a few months prior to starting streaming, I came out as trans on Twitter. I didn't have a big following. I had like 300 followers, but the tweet itself got 800,000 impressions. Because it was just like retweeted by so many people and it just spread out. It kind of blew up. It kind of went like a little viral, and it was crazy because it was literally just a tweet of me coming out in a little video of me saying what's going on, like, you know, saying that I was transitioning and saying that because I had already been for a while, and kind of explaining a little bit about how like I did not have a very like I had very unsupportive parents, and kind of putting out the message of like, everyone who really cares about you will support you, and that's all that matters. That's like to this day the most important sentence I've ever heard in my life. And just putting that message out and seeing the response the community had to it was crazy. I was like, oh my god, because I was getting so many DMs of like, I was getting a lot of shitty DMs too, but there were among the shittiness, there were so many people who were like, I saw your video and it inspired me to come out to my best friend, or to start transitioning, or to just question myself a little, or to think about something, or it just made me smile. And I got hundreds of those DMs. I was getting those every single day. And I was like, wow, if I can help people be a little bit happier, help change their lives in a meaningful way from one tweet, imagine what I could do if I keep doing this. And so I just tried to figure out in what capacity made sense to keep sharing myself and my story, my message with the world, and I landed on streaming. And so that was at its absolute core why I started and why I continue to stream, because I think life would be a little easier for me if I saw someone like me up on Twitch or up on YouTube or whatever it was when I was a kid. It was barely even YouTube. I mean, if I was able to go on, because when I was like 12 years old and I looked on the internet, I barely saw any information about being trans, let alone like someone's candid thoughts about how they felt or what their journey was like. It was literally just like internet forums, and it was difficult to figure that kind of stuff out. And so, yeah, I mean, that's kind of the important part, and like the importance of it all. But I mean, it's certainly not easy. Like I'm lucky again to have the option of I can, you know, stop saying that I'm trans today, and in a few years people will forget about it, or most people won't, like most people from a few years just won't even know. And I have that option, and like I've considered that option. Not to say that I'm going to go with that option or anything, but it's always an option that I have, because there's so much hate and backlash and bullshit that you get associated with just being trans, that it's really difficult to keep your head up the whole time. I mean, I know all the good that I'm able to do, and I'm so thankful to be in a position where I not only am able to help people, but I happen to just be like resilient enough and have enough of a support network to be able to like push through all the bullshit. But it's like really hard. Like I've had a lot of really bad days thanks to the world being shitty and people being mean. Like I've gotten death threats. Like I've gotten people like try to fish up really personal information about me and threaten me. Like that stuff happens all the time. And on a much smaller scale, sometimes I just look at Twitch chat and someone new shitty shows up and they say something really rude. And even though I've seen it like tens of thousands of times before, maybe that one day it just hits a little harder, and it really fucks with my day. So, you know, being a creator in a marginalized group of any capacity is very difficult on Twitch, on any platform of creating content. But especially I think trans people have like a really tough time with it, because of all the marginalized groups, it feels like trans folks are kind of you know, that I feel like society has only just started accommodating trans individuals on like a bit larger scale. But if you go back like 10 years or 15 years, like trans people are still like on a pretty much universal scale, like the butt of a joke at most in pop culture. And of course, like I'm not trying to like of course, I'm not trying to discount the struggles of other marginalized communities. It just from like an objective timeline of like, again, 10 years ago, if you look at kids shows, like kids cartoons, or like Drake and Josh, or like How I Met Your Mother, like Friends, like any of those, like not just kids shows, but like adult shows, like shows that everybody watched, like every few episodes, there's going to be some stupid joke about someone who's trans or something. And as if like, that's just not a human or anything. Like that was, you know, it was extremely rough. It still is rough, but like society is getting a bit better. But like gender neutral pronouns like barely existed. That kind of stuff was just not commonplace at all. And so I think uh it's a lot of the world's still getting used to us existing, even though we've existed forever. I mean, I studied sociology with a minor in anthropology, and I could tell you that like in a lot of different societies from thousands of years ago, like things were really different for trans people too. I mean, some societies are really bad, but like for example, let's see. I think one that I really like is Native American two spirits. So like in old Native American cultures, trans people were considered two spirits. So one human that had the spirit of both like a man and a woman in their body. And so, to them, that was them being trans, but like societally, it was called being a two spirit. And those people were like actually highly like prized in society as like doctors or judges or leaders. It was very interesting because there's like documentation of settlers from the EU kind of coming on over and being very confused at like the like tribes leaders, and they're like literal recordings of like could not tell if they were a man or a woman. And I think that's sick. I think that's amazing. And it's like that kind of stuff is really important because I think society kind of conditions a lot of trans people to think that their transness is wrong, or think that what's in their brain naturally is not natural or bad. But it's cool to at least like study and look at these other cultures where like trans people are actually celebrated. Like there's also like more than two genders in a lot of societies of like there's a lot of societies that don't just exist on like a binary kind of thing like ours has existed for so long. So it's a rough world out there, and I think I'm just doing my best to try to pave the way for other people, to try to pave the way for other people, to try to pave the way for other people. I think as a trans creator, it's not my job, it's like my privilege to be able to sort of kind of push ahead of a lot of the bullshit and show other people that they could do it too, and share my story too, because like I've had to see some really, really messed up shit as a kid, and as a teenager, like stuff that had traumatized me for life and stuff, and that's something that no one should have to live through alone, and some people do. And so the more available I am, and the more my story kind of gets put out there, the more people I could reach that could feel like they're alone, and the more people could feel like they're not alone.
Well, it's always been really inspiring having known you for the short amount of time that I have. You've always been a big inspiration because of not only how freely you talk, but how you don't, it's not always about sugarcoating things. It's like, here are the facts, like whether you like them or not. And I guess that goes back to what you were saying about being analytical. And that's something that I personally really get along with as somebody that struggled, especially when I was younger, in terms of when it came to the differences between people. And I know there were certain moments with friends that I used to have that were younger that definitely like had viewpoints based upon the way people looked, or as you grow up, the society that I was growing up around, like there was a lot of things that I learned the more people I met that were different from me in terms of my sexuality, color, all that kind of stuff. And again, I don't think I'm like ashamed to say it, but I was definitely ignorant to a lot of things growing up that now I feel like I'm just finally starting to figure out in terms of the world, and that's incredible within itself. But yeah, I'm a huge advocate for how you stand up for not only yourself but for other people in terms of what you do. So thank you for doing that for one. I'm going to try not to get emotional about it either, because like personally it hits me on an emotional level when it comes to like mental health and how hard it can be on those days where you need to take it upon yourself to go, hey, like I acknowledge that I'm feeling this way, but that doesn't mean that I can't overcome this or that it's abnormal to be feeling the way that you are. A question I had here as well was, you know, you talked a bit about how people treated you, but was there anybody, not again to name names, but in terms of like, were there people that treated you differently before and after? And if so, like, how was it you wanted to be treated? So hopefully people can learn from that in terms of how we should approach talking to people that maybe are transitioning as well, so that people aren't scared to have the conversation.
Yeah. So I will say being trans is a very interesting thing because on an actual statistical scale, there are way, way, way more people who are trans than folks might realize. And that's because a lot of trans people kind of herd towards certain communities because they're a lot safer. And so I'm actually just going to do a quick little like Google search, like
For sure.
percentage of trans people. 0.6% of US adults identify as trans, which is like kind of a lot. That's like millions of people. Millions and millions of people are trans. And you know, it's weird because it's still something that so many people are learning about. So like step one, like kind of step one on like how to have a trans friend and be respectful is like do your own research first off. Like just because someone's trans does not mean that they are there to teach you or educate you on how you're supposed to treat them. Just as you know how to treat somebody who has different culture than you or different appearance than you, you should also learn how to treat people with, you know, different gender identities and you know, people who are transitioning. Like that's just a basic form of human respect. So number one, look that stuff up because there's resources now. Like you can figure this stuff out. Number two, ways to be supportive of trans friends. I think it's very interesting because our perception of ourselves is very mirrored by others' perception of us. And so I think something that is really sweet and helpful and considerate is obviously first and foremost is to just like act normal. Like people could be transitioning and that's and you know, it could seem really weird for you because your construction of a certain person could really be shifting. But think about how it is for them. They're the ones who are like shifting over and they're the ones who are going through so much. And the least you could be is respectful and act normal. But the other thing, I think the extra step towards actually being a considerate human is be supportive and not in this sort of like, I support you being trans thing because that, you know, that's great. But I think be supportive in a little bit more of a dynamic way. It's like tell someone they look nice or like notice the things that people are doing appearance wise and like maybe just compliment them or like tell them, you know, I think like when you are transitioning, you're essentially going through puberty, like chemically. And you're also just shifting into a sort of societal role that you've never really acted in before. And it's like being a teenager as an adult all over again. And it's very stressful and it's very scary and it's very emotional. And a lot of people who transition tend to like regret their, like a lot of their actions or behaviors the first year or two they transition. They look back a few years later and they're like, wow, that was pretty cringy, just as anyone does when they're like a teenager. But I think it's important that, you know, throughout that process, like their identity is going through a lot and their mental health is going through a lot, and the least you could do is just like give them a compliment. Like I think I've noticed that, again, I touched on what society expects us to look like and how that reflects our you know, ideas of if we look good or if we don't look good or if we feel confident in ourselves or not. But like I've seen people on a full range of appearances and presentations be like 1,000,000% confident in themselves, and that's amazing. And I've seen people who could be in that exact same boat, but just like, you know, they really don't like how they look. And I think interestingly enough, and not 100%, but again, as a sociology major and as like a large observer of people, I think a big part of that is their environment and the people they surround themselves with. If you look a certain way that is, maybe atypical and you're not super confident in the way that you look, but you're surrounded with people that constantly gas you up or just tell you look nice or point out certain things that they really like, or just like, I like your dress, I like your earrings, like, I love your hair, like, oh, you look so pretty today. That's the biggest difference. That's such a big difference in just feeling a little bit of confidence in yourself. So yeah, my like tip for people who have friends or acquaintances that are transitioning is like, go the extra step. I promise you, their life is really hard right now. Transitioning is not easy for anyone. Go the extra step. First off, be respectful and respect people's boundaries. Don't ask invasive questions. Google this shit. You could Google anything. You don't have to ask a trans person things about being trans. You don't have to pry. And then be nice. Like, try to be actively nice. Again, I think it goes a long way just to like point out nice things you see in people. Like, I think I really like to just stop what I'm doing if I see like a selfie of a friend or something, and just like stop and find something I like about them and just be like, hey, your hair is really pretty. Or it's like, oh my god, I love that tattoo. It's like, oh, that shirt's so cute, and just something like that. I think that's it. And like, that goes a really long way.
I love that you're mentioning things that should happen in society anyway. And like, I knew that's why I asked the question, but in terms of like hearing it back, sometimes people do need a reminder. And I feel like it's the same as, again, the same notion of Valentine's Day being a day to remind someone that you love them, when realistically you could tell someone you love them every single day. There's nothing stopping you from doing that. And that's something that I think, in terms of from a streaming perspective, that's something we've been working really hard on, is getting a group of people together that actively support each other beyond the norm. And again, like, we run in the same circles of people that we hang out with. And, I consider you a good friend because of that. And in terms of what I found from being surrounded by people that not only understand, I guess, because I'm a lot more of an introverted person, being able to get surrounded by people that, like you said, gas you up or tell you, hey, you can do this, reassuring you that you are good enough to do what you do, is so encouraging. It's so encouraging. And I cannot put into words or stress enough how much a bad environment can force you down a rabbit hole of feeling like you're alone or lost, when in fact you could be living such a different world in terms of finding those people, finding that tribe of people that love and support you and respect you when it comes to that stuff.
100%. 100%. Yeah. It's I think it's important because I've had to have a lot of conversations with people about why it's important to say they, them, for like, random people on the internet, because like, it's a big internet habit to just say your opponent or someone you're playing with or something is just he, him. Like, I've had to have so many conversations, and it always stems to the same thing. So many people who don't understand that stuff. I mean, a lot of people who don't use they, them, they just don't kind of have it hammered out in their head as to like why it's important. But I will review why it is important. A lot of it stems to like, oh, is someone going to get offended or something? And the core of it is no, but you might make someone really sad. Like, you might just make someone upset. You might just like ruin someone's day, honestly. Like, when I first started transitioning and when I was streaming and stuff, and like, I would watch back a VOD to see what my game against some person was like, and they would just say he because like they didn't know me, but I didn't know that in my brain. And so I was like, well, are they just like doing the default, or like, are they being mean accidentally? Either way, they are being mean accidentally. And the whole thing of using they, them and just being sensitive to people's pronouns is because it's not like, an angry mob is going to come at you. More than likely, you're never going to hear why it was wrong to say he or him, but someone somewhere might just feel shitty. And you might just ruin their day. And I feel like when people kind of understand that, they start to understand why this like little thing that you just have to like get yourself in the habit of doing makes such a big difference. Because if someone said just like change your word choice, and you might make someone, you might keep someone from having a really shitty day, just think about what one of your really shitty days look like, and think about how much power one person has in impacting that. But like that could put you down like a really bad rabbit hole, and it just takes 5 seconds to like really think about it and stop what you're saying and think about it. And it's obviously a habit to build up, but I mean, it's a lot. I mean, the way I like to put it is because there's different levels of resistance that people have. They're initially they're like, oh, my bad, or they're like, oh, why does this matter? But then there's one more step that I think is important to discuss. Just not that I think that most people watching would push it this far, but there are people who are like, well, why does that even matter? Like, I've been misgendered, I don't care. Like people who aren't trans. And I'll tell you, is when people transition, there's like a really, it's your gender identity and your gender presentation. Pronouns are really important to you. And anytime you get misgendered, it kind of like reminds you of all the things that you were forced into, and not all the things that you are, but instead all the things, it just reminds you of the shitty stuff. And think of it this way, for someone who's not trans, when you like bite your cheek by accident and your mouth gets really sensitive, and then the next time you bite your cheek it's even worse. It's like that. It's like every single time it happens, it's such a tender and soft wound that, sure, if you've never been misgendered and it doesn't mean a thing to you, it doesn't really matter, though once in a while it happens. But if you're like biting your cheek like 3 times a day every day, I promise you're gonna be crying by like the 10th time you bite your cheek. It hurts. It's really bad. And it sucks because some people will be like, I'm used to it. Just like you shouldn't be okay with freaking biting your cheek till you bleed and then just saying you're used to the pain. The point is that kind of stuff is gonna hurt, and it's gonna hurt a lot more for people who are really in the thick of it and been really feeling it a lot. And maybe someone hasn't been misgendered in years, and then they do, and then it just brings back a wave of shittiness, and it could open up that scar, and it could really, yeah. I mean, you just gotta watch yourself to make sure that you don't make someone's day really shitty, because like gender dysphoria is really bad, and having that stuff trigger off of like someone not even paying attention, not even trying to hurt you, it sucks. I've been hit with it like well after anyone would ever think to misgender me. I've been hit with it, and it could have been a genuine accident, or they just had no idea anything. They weren't even paying attention, and it still hits me in my gut.
Yeah.
Right. Like it still hits me in my gut. Like I was watching so it was the very first time I played in like one of the more modern Hafu lobbies, and it was literally the first game I played with Disguised Toast. And I think I haven't actually talked on comms yet. And it was in one of his YouTube videos, and I was watching it, and I was like, oh, I'm in a Disguised Toast video. And he like gendered me like male by default, because he had literally never heard me speak. But like and I know within all reason that literally the next time after you heard me talk, he like figured out what my pronouns were. But for some reason it still gut punched me. I was like, wow, that sucked. And it's like no one's misgendered me in such a long time, but it's still such a tender and shitty spot in my heart that like I promise you, people who are going through it, it's gonna hurt them a lot more than it hurt me. And it genuinely, I was like, wow, ouch, I didn't expect to get punched in the gut today. So yeah, just be considerate. If you're not a part of this group that's affected by it, just remember that people are really affected by it. And if you saying they, them means that out of the 10,000 times you say it, you keep one person from having a really shitty day, it's worth it. Because like, you never know what those shitty days are going to lead to, Something. Like I've spiraled into like really dark places from something people have said by accident, or never even like, I've had situations where someone was just being careless and stupid and never knew they did something wrong, and it like brought me to really, really shitty places, like some of the worst places in my life. So be caring, be considerate. That's the overall message.
Something in there really struck me with what you said, which was to do with the idea of that even in recent history, I talked to a female streamer about the messages that she was receiving from various guys on the internet, and they were not nice messages. And she said oh, I'm just so used to it now. And that in itself really hurt my soul to hear that it's got to a point where people can be used to the fact that they are going to be put down or hurt on a daily basis, purely based on other people's ignorance. And that is why I think it's so important to be able to talk about this stuff on a platform and to showcase that it is possible to change. Because again, look at where the world was, even 10 years ago, like you said. And I can even think of like pop culture comedy from the UK that I've been watching in more recent history, like from like the 80s and stuff, old school shows like Only Fools and Horses and all this like old school comedy stuff, which I grew up with. And even in those, they make jokes whereby I just know that nowadays it wouldn't fly. It wouldn't be funny, and it's not funny to hear them back anyway. So I think it is important to have these discussions. And speaking of having these discussions, obviously you were made a Twitch ambassador, which I'd love if you could maybe talk a little bit about what that actually entails.
Yeah, I mean, a Twitch ambassador, it's a question that I get asked once in a while. It's like, hey, think of a brand ambassador, but for Twitch. Basically, Twitch kind of handpicks folks that they think are like a good representation of their platform at large. And I think that they definitely try to favor a variety of humans, of like try to get a full... They're trying to, up the representation on the end of like, is this someone that a huge amount of people can see themselves in? And are they setting like a good example for the community? Like, if so, let's make them an ambassador. And that's kind of what it is that I kind of get the spot. I get the, the opportunity of getting the spotlight once in a while. And it just kind of, I think like Twitch ambassadors are just sort of people that Twitch like kind of puts the marking on of like, we trust these people. Like, these are like safe people to go hang out with and watch their stream and stuff like that. But not just that, but they're like, let's promote these people, and I think that's really dope. They have certainly, I've spoken to like the people on their team, and it's really nice that they do the research of like, let's make sure that we have like a lot of people of color, and we have LGBTQ folks, and we have women, and we also have, also just like regular like cis het white guys too. I mean, there's a lot of people who are Twitch ambassadors, and I think they are super dope community leaders. And just like, I say this about everyone but myself because I don't want to like, I don't like to just like pat myself on the back that much. But they're people. I guess I can include myself. They're people who should be proud of the work that they've done on Twitch, and I think that the people on the platform themselves like acknowledge it by making you an ambassador, and it's cool. I get front page once in a while, and that's like, I get cool opportunities. Like, they just put out a tweet about me a few days ago, or yesterday even, and that was awesome. And it feels really cool to be a Twitch ambassador, because it feels like I kind of have the platform by my side, and I think it helps me reach other people. I mean, me being on the front page once in a while helps some folks randomly just stumble upon me and be like, wow, this is really great. And I was having a bum day. Like, I've been on the front page and I've screamed about trans rights to 30,000 people. And the amount of people that echoed through is like breathtaking. It's amazing. So it's cool. Being a Twitch ambassador is pretty cool.
To put it into layman's terms for some of you people out there, the idea of getting partnered on Twitch is like getting verified, I guess, to some degree. But getting ambassador is like being super double verified by the channel and by the platform itself, being like, hey, we trust you and what you the content you put out, and we want more people to be able to see that that we support you, which is awesome.
I think Twitch ambassadors will also shine quite a bit more when TwitchCon returns. They had always they'd always played quite a big role in just like being the guides and like kind of walking you through like what it is that Twitch is. And also from a streamer perspective, I think that's something that we're missing a little bit, but I think Twitch ambassadors have acted as like a guide towards other partners or affiliates or just streamers in general. So I'm very excited for TwitchCon because I get to go there and like speak at some panels and like give advice and stuff like that and like meet a bunch of people. Like, that's so cool. I'm so excited.
I know it's late, so I only have like a couple more questions to ask you.
Yeah,
But
sure.
in terms of, we talked or at least stressed a little bit on mental health there. What is it that keeps you motivated, and how do you remain in good mental health? And obviously on the bad days as well, because we're only human. We have those bad days. What is it that you do that helps you get back to having the good days?
The thing that I've never really, I've definitely thought about quitting streaming, and I think the thing that I always loop back around to is that I help make people meaningfully happy. Like, people tune into my stream and they smile a little, or their shitty day gets better, or their already good day gets better. Or they're bored at work and they get to watch me and have a fun time. And whether it's 10 people or 100 people or sometimes 300 or sometimes 500, whatever capacity it is. And even on days when I don't have a lot of viewers, that could be discouraging too. But I'm like, what? At least someone who's watching, at least one person who's watching is having like a good time and is feeling happier. And the fact that like I have the privilege to just instill like some form of meaningful happiness in somebody's life, like that's the thing that keeps me going always. That's always my drive. And it sounds sappy, but I can't really lie about this kind of stuff because it's like the deepest thing in my heart is like, all I want to do is just make as many people as I can, as meaningfully happy as I can.
You're certainly doing that, and hopefully you'll continue to do it as well. In
Heck
terms of the platform itself, where do you see yourself in 5 years, and like where do you see Twitch in 5 years from now? The age-old question.
That's a hard question.
For
Where do I see
sure.
myself in 5 years?
Where would you like to see yourself in 5 years? Perhaps if I word it like that.
Streaming still probably. I
Hmm.
don't know what 5 years ahead of me has in store, but no matter what it is, I'll be helping people. Whatever it is I'll be doing, I'll be helping people. If I'm still streaming, awesome. Hopefully I'm just a household name by then. Uh, I just want to normalize everyone, making sure that everyone else is comfortable, because that's not really the case. And so ideally in 5 years, I have, made a huge impact across just the world through Twitch and through content creation. And ideally 5 years from now, I've reached so many more people with my story and my feelings, and helped a lot more people have some happier days and happier times with their own life.
It's not hard to see why Twitch made you an ambassador. So that's
Appreciate
something.
it.
I feel like it's important to say those things. I think that's something that I've discovered in the last sort of few years of my life. Those moments where I feel like I should have said something, like a compliment, or just being honest about how I'm feeling in a certain situation, and I'm trying to actively say those things now, because I feel like in the past there are so many moments where people feel as though they let the moment slip by, when in fact the moment is now, like when you say that thing in the first place. And if you're still thinking like, oh man, I should have said this, it's like you still have the opportunity a lot of the time to say that. And I feel like that's something that often people talk themselves out of, in the same way that I talk myself out of doing those charity streams for years. So I think it's
That's super smart and important, I think. The world would be a much better place if everyone just stopped for a moment and complimented someone, something that they were genuinely thinking once in a while. Everyone thinks that kind of stuff. It just takes a certain kind of feel to say it. And yeah, it's fun. I think it's funny because especially like guys among other guys don't usually compliment themselves, like each other, as much as like women do. And so like when I'm hanging out with like lady friends, like there's a lot of like, oh, I love your dress, or your hair is so pretty today. But when I hang out with a guy friend, like it's really funny, like looking him in the eye and be like, you look really handsome today, and then just watching his face go red because he has no idea how to handle that. He's like, me? No. And it's the cutest thing. So I think if there's ever a lesson to come out of this podcast, compliment somebody. Anyone. Doesn't matter who they are, a friend of yours, someone you know, just like obviously within an appropriate sphere. You know what? Let's just compliment one of your friends. There we go. Everyone's got a friend someone's.
I used to do it at work. I used to work in a convenience store, and I made it sort of my mission to compliment 3 people a day. And again, it wasn't like big things. It would just be like, hey, I like your scarf, as I'm serving them, or stuff like that. Just like small comments that maybe might make that person's day a little bit better.
I've definitely had a random person be like, oh my God, I love your tattoos. And I'm like, oh, cool. And it makes me smile. And it's a good thing. You could create something out of nothing. You could just make someone smile and happy out of nowhere. Like,
sure.
You have that power. Isn't that dope? Like, that's so cool.
I remember one woman, I can't remember, I complimented her on her coat or something like that. And she burst into tears. And she said about how she really needed to hear that. She'd been having such a rough day at work. I think she worked in a hospital. I can't quite remember. But like in that one instance, being able to give that one sentence change somebody's day. And I think it is very important to recognize that. And again, it's not about doing it to be able to tell people that. It's more just being a good person. I think that's what you and I have been trying to get across from this podcast in general. And even within that, I think we've also given a lot of good advice on Twitch that maybe people won't have necessarily heard or listened to so far. And I think that has been the overlapping theme of the first, I think this is episode 11. The first 11 episodes has been people being genuinely authentic and themselves is what is getting you far in your career. And that is important to continue to highlight as we move forward. There is one question I always ask my guests, which is, would you come back?
Yeah, of course.
Awesome.
That was great.
Yeah, if you'd come back in the future, that would be great. We'd love to hear more from you and what you continue to achieve. Like you said, on the 31st, you'll be doing a charity live stream. If you wanted to talk about the details of that once again, because hopefully I should be putting this out tomorrow. So
No, I mean, I haven't even like announced it on Twitter yet, but yeah, on the 31st, I'm going to be doing Among Us for a few hours, just get a bunch of people together and try to get some money raised for charity, and then afterwards I haven't fully decided, that's why I haven't fully announced it. I'm either going to do like my friend Ava will come over and we're just going to take song requests for donation money of like drunk karaoke songs, which should be really fun.
I love that.
Or I'm going to play Phasmophobia with some friends, and instead of taking donation to Trans Lifeline request for songs, I'm going to take donation for Trans Lifeline request to make me pee my pants. So I'll have different scarier notifications for every amount that you donate. So one of those two things will be on the agenda. I'll figure out which one within like a day or two, and then I will tweet about it.
Wonderful.
So
Awesome. Well, you heard it here first, folks. To the small number of people that are currently listening to the podcast, but I appreciate all of you nonetheless. If you do want to continue to support the podcast, we're not only available on YouTube at Streamer Consciousness, but we're also on Spotify. We have a Patreon as well. So thank you so much to the people that have been supporting on Patreon as well. I've been doing bonus videos on there of just various games or discussing things to do with Twitch or the people that I've met. So if you want to check that out, you're more than welcome to as well. And we are on Twitter at Casterminds, because Streamer Consciousness is too long to put in an at. So there's that too. Bloody, if you'd like to once again give us your socials, just so people can know where to find you.
Yeah, 3 things. Number 1, twitch.tv/bloody. Number 2, twitter.com/bloody. Number 3, go find your nearest friend and give him a compliment. Those are my 3 requests.
Yes.
Follow me on those 2 platforms and maybe give someone a hug or tell someone their shirt looks nice, something like that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for spending the time to talk to me, and which is something we do anyway, which I like, but I definitely feel like I've been blessed to be able to talk to you for the last sort of hour and a half on my own. So thank you so much for that. And yeah, we will see you guys for the next episode sometime in the near future. Have a wonderful evening, and we'll see you later. Goodbye.
Bye.